Hello, folks. Hope you're having a great Saturday evening. Hi, Dave. How you doing, bro?
Hello. How you doing? Yeah, good. Thank you.
How are you keeping there, folks? There. So tonight we're talking to the lead investigator and also the chairman of the BUFOG, the Birmingham UFO Group. It's Dave Hodrien. How you doing?
Great, thanks. Had a very, very busy day. Been absolutely warm as anything today, hasn't it? Absolute heat wave.
Oh, it's actually beautiful here. We're getting all our summer in one day here as well, So I can't wait for the winter to come now after this one day.
Absolutely.
But we're going to be talking to Dave about the subjects. We're going to be talking to Dave about UFO sightings. Also, the second subject is going to be contact and abduction. And for the last subject, we're going to be talking to Dave about UFO Wave, which is a game you created. Is that true, Dave?
That's correct. Yeah, I designed it from scratch and got it commercially released. It's the most authentic game on the UFO subject, the real, genuine UFO subject ever released in the world of tabletop gaming.
Perfect. And I'm looking forward to it because we're going to be talking to Dave later on as well about where we've actually got something in common, that we're going to a convention soon in October there, and I'm going to purchase definitely the game there. So it might be a quick look at it later on. It might be a quick little quick game if it's there, if it can show the cards.
Of course, yeah.
No worries there. Folks, so yes, if you like to ask Dave a question, feel free to do so on this live feed. You can also go to our website, www.GhostÉire.net, go to the contact page, fill in the blanks. If you have a private message, just put in brackets private message. Now, if you're affiliated with any paranormal team or tourist attraction, feel free to name the group and the organization. Just put it in brackets, join the show, and we'll give a shout out to you as well. We're coming live through this stream and also on our website, www.GhostÉire.net. If you go to the home page, there's a red button saying the GhostÉire Channel. Just click on that red button. It'll take you to the live feed. You can also see past shows and what is coming up on the future on that site. But it'd be great if you stayed on Facebook. And we're going to come to your shout outs shortly there. There's also a chance, folks, as some of you have done, you've already commented, and so that you'll have a chance. You'll be entered into our little lottery jar, and I'll be picking a name out of that lottery jar during the show, and you'll have a chance to enter our Halloween mega draws. This is for a Halloween show, the Halloween Extravaganza 4, which is on the 30th of October, which I think is a midweek. But just stay tuned and you'll have an opportunity to do that. Also, folks, so that's about it, really. I'm going to come to your comments there. Jonathan says, hi from Fermanagh. How you doing, Jonathan? Hope you're keeping well. Hi, Jonathan. Jennifer, how you doing, Jen? Team member GhostÉire. Paul O'Brien says, hello, you all. How you doing, Paul? Hope you're keeping well. Adam from explain.ie says, evening all. How you doing, Adam? Thank you for all the help. How you doing? So, Dave, I suppose the first subject we're going to talk to you there about is how you got started.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been at this now for 16 years, been an active UFO investigator, researcher, whatever you want to call me. And it's been something that was a calling for me for many years before. Yeah, I've had an interest in all areas of mysteries of the world, really, all areas of the paranormal and that since an early age, as many of us have, right? Talking with friends here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So going right back to childhood, just reading a load of creepy books just there with the torchlight and that sort of thing. All sorts of stuff, ghosts, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, you name it, all that sort of stuff, and really fascinating. But from my early teens, I started to delve into UFOs in a more sort of serious manner, kind of just delve into that side of the stuff. I don't know what drew me in particular. I think it's just like the fascination, the reality of it. If it is real, which it is, It's just so mind-blowing and so massive, and has so many implications on the world, that we could be being visited by these other advanced life forms, other intelligences. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized that the amount of evidence on record supporting that reality, just astronomically big. Now, from about the age of 16, I started going to UFO conferences. I live in Solihull, south of Birmingham, and it just so happened that UFO Magazine, the biggest international UFO publication at the time, they had their yearly conference in Solihull, where I live, which was very convenient because I wasn't driving back then. But I was able to start going to conferences. So I just remember that very first conference, going down there with my brother and a couple of my friends, and just seeing researchers on the front lines of this subject talking about cases they were investigating. And I wondered back then just how fascinating it would be to do that, to actively investigate the subject and speak with people who are having these amazing experiences. But it wasn't really until 2007 that that I became an active investigator. So as I say, I could have started a lot sooner. I had a very, very big interest in the subject over the years, just looking to, watching documentaries, films, the works, just reading lots of books on the subject, that sort of thing. But the creation of Birmingham UFO Group in 2007 was my driving force, really. I wasn't the original chairman of the group. It was actually started by another couple of gents, but I was one of the first members to sign up for Birmingham UFO Group. I remember coming across it online and thinking, this is brilliant. There's a UFO organization in my local area. It's quite convenient. I can get out there and just meet other people who've got an interest in the subject and just discuss this stuff with them. And I thought, this is going to be great. And the first few meetings were just held in the Amber Tavern in Quinton, Birmingham. And it was just a pub, basically. We just met up at the corner of this pub and just had a good old chinwag. But after being at the group for several months, the original chairman of the group, they gave me the opportunity to become the official investigator for Birmingham UFO Group. They could see I had a big passion for the subject and a lot of interest in it. And essentially, I took that on. There was a particular UFO case, which we can go into in more depth if you want. It was quite a very, very interesting case, in fact, a multiple witness case. And the witnesses of this incident had just started attending BUFOG as well. So they were there and they were talking about this. And I thought it'd be amazing to go out to the location where it happened, because it was in the Birmingham area. So I thought it'd be so good to go with the witnesses to where it took place, just out of interest, not on an investigative front. And that was where the original chairman, Craig and Mark, approached me and said, do you want to write this up? Do you want to investigate this case and write up some sort of report for Birmingham UFO Group? And I said, yeah, let's go for it. So that became my first official case report for the group. And since that time, I've written literally hundreds of reports on incidents, a lot of the time kind of individual incidents, but also some reports where people have had a lifetime of many experiences. So I've since then, I've without a doubt investigated hundreds. I'm not keeping some sort of tally, but it's very likely to be over 1,000 cases now over the last 16 years, or should I say 1,000 incidents, right? It's just there's a lot going on with this, and you can break down the bigger case and you can find that the person's had sort of 30 or so experiences. So you're delving into all of those and investigating all of them. And some of my investigations can take months of time just speaking with people in a lot of depth. I became the chairman for the group in 2009. So for the original chairman, it was kind of a short-term thing. It requires a lot of dedication and effort to do this on an enduring basis. And they could see that I was the right person to hand the group, the running of the group over to. So I took that on. And from that point onwards, I was the chairman for Birmingham UFO Group, but also continued to be the lead investigator for the group. I've taken on another couple of investigators as well, who also write up cases for the group.
So how many? So it's a large group. Sorry, folks, if you're watching a comment again, I'm sorry there. I've got to put a lot of jar up. But so how many's in the group altogether that invest? I know there's probably people behind the back.
Yeah, I mean, it comes and goes. So, I mean, we don't really have official membership. We did before the lockdown, yeah, but after the lockdown happened, it was a bit stressed whether we were even going to get the group up and running again with our monthly meetings. So as part of that, I decided to kind of opt out of having sort of official membership and made it kind of more open for anybody to join. But over the years, we've had sort of hundreds of people. Usually down at our monthly meetings, you'll get about sort of 25, 30 people will show up usually. But some of our meetings are very popular. It depends who's on. So we'll often get speakers in to talk on the subject. And if the speakers are really popular, well-known speaker, there might be hundreds of people that show up for the meeting. And then we get other people who can't attend our monthly meetings, but will attend Skywatchers, or they'll get involved on Facebook. So we've got a big community page on Facebook that has 1.8 thousand members at the moment in that. And then our organisation page. So that's where we chat between meetings and just post comments, etc.
Okay, and as I suppose the first question I'm going to ask you now, so I'm going to talk about UFO sightings.
Yes.
But I only just found this out a few weeks ago. I looked up the word sighting, and it's actually in the term. It's in the Oxford Cambridge Dictionary. It's got the actual term.
Yes.
That is connected with UFOs there. Mm-hmm. But can you explain more about where that came from, the word sighting, or the term of it?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just, we had to go right back to the 1940s for that. Yeah, so there was a lot of sightings as it was occurring back then. There was there's been sightings for hundreds of years, right? We've got historical records of there's cave paintings thousands and thousands of years old that appear to show saucer-shaped craft and that sort of thing. That's open to interpretation. Some people may say, oh, that's not a UFO, it's something else, and I've just drawn it, and it just happens to look similar. But I've seen some very, very interesting historical evidence, some very old paintings, hundreds of years old, that look very, very much like domed discs or disc-shaped craft and that sort of thing. Yeah. And there's even some of these old drawings, etc., appear to show abductions taking place and that sort of thing. It's really fascinating. The ancient alien aspect of the subject is not my speciality. It's not something I focus on. I focus on what's going on today with the subject, speaking with witnesses. My oldest case goes back to 1935, so I have dealt with some quite a number of historical cases.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But obviously they go back many, many years before that. But in the 1940s, which happens to be around the time of the infamous Roswell incident, there was a whole wave of sightings going on back then, hell of a lot. And around that time, this whole kind of term, the term UFO came in, and the term flying saucer, which is Kenneth Arnold's infamous sighting of and he described them as like a saucer bouncing off water. So that description went out with the news, and it kind of gained popularity. So there was a time where they were calling all UFOs saucers, right? Or flying saucers, even if they weren't actually saucer shaped. So you get lots of different shapes and types. But if we look at all the different types of aircraft that we have on planet Earth, why would the same logic not apply for another intelligent species?
I was going to say that to you there. I was going to ask you about the history, how far back, and also what kind of shapes, the source then there.
Yes.
As you said, you can only think of probably what's it called? It's the airplane you used in the Desert War in 1990s in Iraq. I forget now the name of the aircraft.
Stealth bomber.
That's the one there. Well, it's interesting you say, because I've just recently investigated a site there in Carsavine. There's the first UFO kind of watch there, and it was 5 days after the Roswell incident that this object was seen in the sky.
Yes,
1947. That's correct there, and it was happened a few days, but it was in the same sort of. I think it was the same year they started the weather balloons.
There was a lot of activity going on around New Mexico. The Roswell incident and the object that came down, which I absolutely categorically believe was an advanced craft of alien origin. I don't pretend to know the exact origin of these beings, but I certainly believe that they are intelligent. I believe that there are multiple types, and I believe that they are regularly interacting with the human race on an enduring basis. The amount of evidence supporting that is absolutely astronomical, and you get all sorts of skeptical views on the subject and everything, which may explain some cases. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of misidentification that goes on with this stuff, right? Any realistic ufologist, UFO researcher, whatever you want to call them, will know that and will take that on board. So the vast majority of cases can be explained by mundane explanations, and I like to work through cases and be able to kind of dismiss those explanations. And when you dismiss everything mundane, what you're left with something that's more unusual, that may well be a genuine case, as I say. But anyway, yeah, back to New Mexico. Yes, there was a lot of activity back then around that time, and some people believe that was because that was where they were starting to test nuclear weapons in the States, in New Mexico, and that they were very interested in what was going on with that, because why wouldn't there be?
I suppose the last 100, possibly last 80 years since the outbreak of, I suppose it's the aviation system has started to really take off.
Absolutely.
That's not just a weird saying, take off. But I'm just saying, like, as you said, like, I suppose you got the space race in between, then you got the Mercury project and all that, you know, and then I suppose Vietnam and then the Gulf War and so on there. But what are the governments that be? What are their views on it? I know there's so many leading organizations and all that. I suppose to start with NASA, like what would their view would be?
Yeah, so a lot of official views kind of kept. They play down the subject. Yeah, this is something that's it's been categorically proven through documents that have come out through Freedom of Information Act. Yeah, that back in the early 1950s, very likely after Roswell and other cases that were going on, and they realised what was going on. They decided we've got to play this down. We've got to put a lid on this. The public are kind of getting too interested in the subject, and we don't want to kind of we want to keep this stuff under wraps and research it in the background, because that makes perfect sense, right? So what they did is they actively played down the UFO subject, and that's something that continues to this day. Yeah, there absolutely is an active cover-up on this subject. Yeah, and I can tell you, I'm absolutely convinced there are areas within our government and within other governments around the world who know a hell of a lot more about this subject than the majority of people and the majority of the government. Yeah, I'm not saying everybody in government knows what's going on. Yeah, it's very compartmentalized, and a lot of it is going to be sort of subgroups, buried deep in the military. People have tried to kind of get past though and get information out of those, and they just hit brick walls. So there's even cases of in the States where presidents have gone looking for particular information. For example, Clinton famously went looking for information on Roswell. So you think as the president, he'd be able to find that, right? He'd go to me, but I'm the president of the USA. You've got to tell me what's going on with this. And they said, you don't have a right to know.
They're not good. There's a lot more behind the president. They're not really the top. They're just probably the puppet, as you could say there.
Yeah, they're a public persona who are told what to say, from behind the scenes. So there very much is an active cover up on this. In the UK, very, very close-lipped. There's been interesting developments in the States since 2017, which many of the listeners are going to be fully aware of, where the Pentagon came forward and essentially said that there are these objects flying around that appear to be intelligently controlled. They're vastly outmaneuvering our aircraft. They've made some very, very interesting statements. They haven't said they're alien. Yeah. Now, there's probably groups within the Pentagon or whatever that know full well that they're alien. Whatever that means, we'll come back to that. We can discuss origins in a bit more depth if you want. But essentially, they're aware that these other intelligences are behind these things, but they're not going to say that yet. So the vast majority of the Pentagon, they're looking at these things and they're like, wow, they're moving at thousands of miles an hour. They're performing right angle turns. They're quite clearly observant of our aircraft. They're under some kind of control. Could these possibly be sort of drones from another planet, from another country of China or Russia or whatever, developed technology to this sort of level? And it's that kind of argument sort of logically falls apart when you consider that America is at the forefront of military development. So if there are anybody's, they'd be American. So that argument doesn't really work, nor the fact that these objects have been seen for decades, going right back to before we had advanced aircraft and that sort of thing. And back then, there's cases from the Second World War of objects shooting off at thousands of miles an hour and that sort of thing. Sometimes captured on radar alongside actual visual confirmation. So even though the vast majority of cases can be easily dismissed and people can be like, oh, it's a story, it's a hoax, this sort of thing, yeah, there's some cases on record that are very, very, very compelling, involving sort of multiple military personnel or aviation personnel, just pilots, because pilots are very, very good observers of things in the air because they're flying around all the time, so they're not going to be easily swayed if they see like a balloon out the window, and they're not going to think, oh, it's an alien spacecraft. And I'm not saying that misidentification hasn't occurred or couldn't occur, because it could, but there's some incredible cases have happened over the years.
And a majority of the time, the balloon stays up in the atmosphere for a good long time, and it's way higher than any plane is flying there. I'm going to come to this case there that you're going to mention here. I'm just going to go to a few shout outs. Jonathan says, What site is good to see if there's any sightings in my local area? And Jonathan's from County Fermanagh.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So yeah, UFO identified. I highly support. UFO identified. Good friends with the runner of the Northwest Division, Ash Ellis. They are essentially what they do is they gather data from lots of UFO groups here in the UK, BUFOG included, and they present grouped up data on that, showing kind of what sightings are happening in which areas, so how many sightings of which different craft, that sort of thing. So then, and they put that out on a yearly basis. So you can go to that database and you can look and you can see what things have happened in your particular local area. So Birmingham UFO Group, I deal with cases from all around the world. Yeah, I've dealt with cases from Australia, Germany, everywhere. But obviously, a lot of the cases are going to be from the UK, and then even more are going to be from around the Birmingham area. Like anytime I wanted to, I could go to a newspaper and I could pass them a bunch of cases, and I could make Birmingham look like one of the biggest UFO hotspots of all time. Yeah. I don't do that because I think there's some realistic to do that. Yeah. I think that if I was working in Portsmouth, then there'd be a whole load of cases from Portsmouth. Yeah. It's biased depending on where the research is based, yeah, because obviously I'm going to get a lot of calls in from around the Birmingham area, and it peters out the further away you get from Birmingham. But I've dealt with many cases from the UK and yeah, quite a few cases from abroad, because in this virtual age, distance shouldn't matter, right? Because we're having a chat right here. It's like we're in the same room, yeah. And it's exactly the same with UFO investigation. And if I want some photographs or whatever, I can always ask the witness to go outside and take a shot or whatever, that sort of thing. And then you've also got other options for that today, like Google Maps, etc. So there's nothing really stopping a detailed investigation from going on. A detailed investigation doesn't necessarily mean that I have to go there in person and talk with the person, and talk with them directly. Although you do get a lot of you kind of miss some of the emotion if you don't have a video call like this. Like if I'm talking on the phone with somebody, you can't see sort of facial expressions and that sort of thing, and it's all very important to determining kind of authenticity of a case, etc.
True, same in the paranormal, like Ghost Hunter,
yes.
Which I'm a part of there. Adam from Unexplained, forgive me if I say pronounce this wrong, the Drought Witch incident of the vanishing woman, how many follow-up interviews or investigations were done? Did anything come from these follow-up interactions? Okay,
so let me explain. This is a very, very big contact case. It's one of the early ones I investigated. It took place in late 2010, I believe, and I first met with the family in early 2011. It's a repeater contact case. So the key lady involved had experiences going right back to childhood, which I documented in great depth. What the question refers to is a video that came out. There's a couple of abductions that occurred, and we can go into these in depth if you want. There's a couple of abductions that occurred, and I say abductions, whatever you want to call it. Some people don't like the word abduction because it kind of implies negativity. Yeah. There's quite a lot of positive cases on record where people don't feel like they've been sort of taken or they've been invited aboard this sort of thing. So I don't want to offend anybody out there who's had sort of positive experiences with this subject. It's a wide range of stuff can go on with this. Very, very complicated. But yeah, anyway. So between these two incidents, yeah, she and her partner had set up a camera in the room and managed to capture what could be interpreted as the lady dematerializing from the bed for a period of 14 minutes. Now it's been sensationalized quite a bit. I regularly get contacted by TV crews and that sort of thing trying to buy the rights to this video footage. Yeah, I don't do that because I'm not in this for any kind of fame or fortune or money. Yeah, I can state that categorically. And I still speak with the lady from time to time and that sort of thing. And it's her video. It's not my video. So I can't start passing it around and giving people the rights to it yet because it's not mine, it's hers. And also witness confidentiality is of prime importance to me. The lady's got a name change in the report. She has gone public. She spoke at a couple of conferences bravely and also appeared on a show. It's very complicated. But yes, there was other incidents that happened after these two abduction experiences that went on for at least the sort of following year after that. After that, things seemed to sort of die out a bit with she hadn't had sort of it kind of died down a bit. She was still getting a bit of interaction, but you have to remember that these experiences can deeply sort of traumatize the people involved. And she still thinks a lot about what happened to her, even today, so many years on. It still affects her. And a lot of the time, people just want to kind of move on and try and get on with a normal life.
Is this sort of the case that we're going to be mentioning later on? Is this a similar case? Is this the actual case, or is this?
Yeah, we can go over later on. I can take you through those. I can go over whatever case you want to go over, but if you want to go over that, if you'd like to go over that case, that's the two abduction cases, and I can talk about what the video may or may not show as well as part of that.
Ashley says, "Hi, Ashley. Don't know who you are. Look, thank you for joining the show. We'll talk about what's going up soon in a few months. There, we'll talk about that, Ashley. So you on the case where there was multiple witnesses, and when did this happen? There, like this. Is this UFO sighting?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. I believe you're talking about the 1974. So this is quite a historical one. It actually happened in August 1974. The reason why this case stands out is that we had independent groups of witnesses talk about this incident. They quite obviously seen the same things, and they independently contacted me. Now, one of the witnesses got in touch because of me putting out the case report. So our case reports, they go out on Google, right? And people might sometimes look because they might be interested. I wonder if anybody else saw that thing that I saw back in, I don't know, wherever, down in Wiltshire and wherever, and they go and type it in, and up will come the case report, and they'll be like, amazing, yeah. And he got in touch because of the case report going out, and it's really good when that happens because it kind of validates the time and effort I put into writing these reports. I mean, really, the real reason that I do it is because I want to share the details of these fascinating incidents with the wider public, and try, I suppose, in a way, change public opinion of the subject, and understand that there is some amazing stuff going on out there. So that's the real reason why I do these case reports. A lot of the time they're kind of confidential, so they've got names taken out, sometimes got locations taken out. It totally depends on the witness and what they do or don't want to share. But they go on the Birmingham UFO Group website, and they're there publicly for people to search up and that sort of thing. But yeah, back to this case. So this was a formation sighting, and it's really fascinating. The first incident that came in from this was from Castle Vale, which is an area of North Birmingham. Right. And what happened with this, I believe I first heard about this one, it might have been 2011 maybe. It was quite it wasn't like a recent case. It was quite a number of years ago that this came the way of BUFOG. So this witness contacted me about this incident. Now, what happened is him and his friend and his friend's girlfriend, they were waiting for a bus. They'd been for an evening out in Castle Vale, and they were waiting for their bus stop home on Tangham Drive in Birmingham, just waiting for this bus to turn up. And they hear the sound of a jet going over, because we're quite near to the area of Birmingham International Airport, right? So a lot of areas of Birmingham are sort of within the flight path. So they see a lot of big passenger jets coming into land, taking off, that sort of thing. And they heard the noise of this passenger jet. So they all look up at it, because they're just hanging around waiting at the stop. And see this jet going across. All of a sudden, they notice tailing the jet appears to be these two glowing blue orbs of light. They're alongside each other like that. And they're moving along after the jet like this. I think that's weird. They're going along in a dead straight line right behind the jet, and all of a sudden, these things, boom, either direction, So they perform right angle turns. One goes off, I think it would have been northwest, and one would have been southeast, So they fly off like that, and they're just gone, We're talking like instant acceleration. And this is one of the things we look for with a genuine case, because there's now drones have unfortunately muddied the waters a bit with that, because drones can perform some pretty amazing looking maneuvers, and I've had many cases where where it probably was a drone and that sort of thing, but it wouldn't have been this because it was back in 1974, right? So it was decades before drones were in commercial. They actually became commercially available in 2013. Now, the military were probably using it before 2013, but this is like the 70s, right? So, these things quite obviously weren't glowing LED balloons, because LED balloons again didn't exist at that time. So you can, most of the mundane explanations you can just put to bed straight away because of the maneuvering capabilities of these things. But they shot off, and I thought, wow, that's amazing, within 30 seconds, they see something else. And what they see is a V-shaped formation of between 7 to 9 glowing oval-shaped objects, Now,
Right.
they thought that maybe the glow was from the ground lights of Birmingham catching on the bottom of these things. Described them as sort of like pearlescent, sort of silver colour, slightly orangey. Maybe that was like the orange glow off street lights, because it's the evening time. But these things were in a V-shaped formation, and they were just flying across the sky. They weren't going the same way the jet went. They kind of came across the other way like that, and they just kind of moved across in a sort of southeast direction. So they were pretty fascinated by those, and they just went across on a straight path and went out of sight. They weren't close to the ground. They were kind of a number of thousand feet up. It's very, very hard to judge exact distances and therefore size of objects. But they certainly weren't anything normal.
I suppose it depends, as you said, I suppose the main things is how luminosity, I don't know what's the word,
luminosity,
luminosity of these craft, and also the way the ascent and descent, and also I suppose the speed they travel there. It is fascinating there. I'm just going to go on to, before we go on to the next subject, which is contact and abduction. Now we're just going to do.
Oh, actually, before we
carry on there.
I know I know the time will just vanish really fast. I know. It always happens really fast. Okay, let me just briefly go over, because this is the multiple sighting. I'll cover it really quick. So this guy from Surly Hole, he gets in touch, and he came across the report. He described how when he was 9 years old in 1974, him and a bunch of other kids were playing football out on this green, this early old Camden Green, right? And he sees exactly the same thing come in. And he said there were lots of witnesses. There were parents standing in doorways, and the same V-shaped formation coming. He doesn't see the blue orbs, He sees the V-shaped formation come in, and it makes a curve over the green, goes off. But as it's moving away, all of a sudden the objects came to a standing still. They stopped dead in the air. So he's looking at this line of them, because he's looking from the rear of them, and they're just standing there dead still. And then the middle one starts doing this weird wobbling thing, like it starts wobbling like that, and a second later shoots straight up vertical, and then all the others, boom, follow it. Second later, kind of like it was leading them, and the other ones just.
Like a squadron formation kind of thing. That will similar. Well, you could link it with, but it's not
Oh, absolutely not. So, I mean, the only thing we've got that can, even do that is like Harrier jump jets. These things definitely weren't Harrier jump jets. So, I mean, there's probably a few other types of jets that can do vertical ascents now or whatever. But you catch my drift, Definitely weren't jets. Later on, we got another sighting in. This came in a couple of years later from Liverpool. And in this case, the objects were in the kind of shape of a sort of 5 sides of a dice. That's how they looked originally, but then one of them sort of moved upwards, which kind of gave it more like a V-shaped thing. And again, they were hovering there above their heads, and then suddenly shoot straight vertical. Now, he thought it was August 1973. Said to him, could you got the year wrong? He said, yeah, it happened decades ago. Could easily got the year wrong. Very, very likely got the year wrong, and it was August 1974. Because there's too many aspects between the cases that link up. Now it turned out that these things had gone right down the UK. They were seen right up in Liverpool. They were seen right down to Devon. I did get to read some of the other reports later on off other people. It's not a very well-known incident, right? But it was a big incident. These things went right down the UK. So it was really fascinating talking with multiple witnesses of that incident. If you want to read more about those and go into more depth on it, the report on the BUFOG website. Let's move on. Sorry about that. Let's go.
It's just so fascinating. I think we're in a time lapse ourselves, because it's gone
always
so
happens.
quick.
Always happens.
Well, I know it's gone so quick there. We're just going to touch on contact and abduction next there. So I'm just going to pull a winner. If you've got to stay tuned there, folks, I'm going to put your name. If you commented, I'm going to just put your name along with Dave. I have a chance to guess where the Shy Fairy, which doorway the entity comes out of. We've got Adam. Adam, you're up first there. You'll have a chance if you stay tuned. You can go into our competition. And Ashley, he's up there as well. So if you stay tuned there, Adam, and Ashley, I'll just do one more just in case. and the other person, it can't be Jennifer, my wife, it's Jonathan. So Jonathan there. We'll leave that up there. So we're going to talk about contact and abduction.
Yeah.
What are the usual signs that a person has been visited by an extraterrestrial life form?
Okay, so essentially, the contact aspect of the subject is something I'm sort of got heavily involved with. It's fascinating to me, and I've dealt with hundreds of contact cases from around the world now, getting quite well known for that particular aspect of the subject, and working with people on it. It can be very sort of traumatic for the individuals involved. As I said earlier in the interview, sometimes the experiences are kind of positive. They're not always negative and terrifying, but there's a lot of mystery goes on with it. The beings are very, very cryptic, usually won't say much at all, sometimes don't speak in any way, shape or form. And that's very frightening for the individual. And there's a lot of trauma and long-lasting effects that can go from contact. So there's all sorts of after effects that can occur. Some physical things that can occur. People are going to get body markings, kind of sort of red sore patches on them that sometimes actually have definite defined shapes to them, like a line of dots or a triangle shape and that sort of thing. And sometimes the individual can remember back to the actual experience and remember the beings putting something on that part of their body, and then they get the marking. Sometimes they can find these what's known as alien implants, these small metallic objects that can be found underneath the surface of the skin. They can be picked up by metal detectors. They can be x-rayed. They can even be extracted. There's a famous surgeon in America who extracted many implants out of different people. Some really fascinating stuff went on with that. Some people believe that they're a kind of some sort of tracking device. Other people believe that they're monitoring the body systems. Maybe they're doing both. Really interesting. As I said, it can lead to kind of ongoing trauma and sort of depression, anxiety, and that sort of thing, which can come about from a mix of nobody believing them about what's happening to them, not even their own friends and family. It's a very serious subject, and I've dealt with people who've been in a very bad way with it, and it's even sort of broken up their relationships and that sort of thing. So it's a very serious part of the subject and genuinely going on. But yeah, you can get that. You can get nosebleeds, sort of ongoing sort of migraines, sort of side effects and after effects. Some of the after effects are kind of short term, will only happen sort of within 1 or 2 days of the incident, and other times it can be long term effects that can last for the rest of the individual's life.
And I know, Pete, as you said, there's people that you've noticed it as well. People aware, but is there signs that you haven't been made contact or abduction with this other life form? Is there ways like I've got it written down? For instance, you mentioned transplants, obviously, but finding things in your body, or knowing of flashbacks, as you mentioned there, loss of time, and changing the environment. Like, is it like would the environment be affected? Like,
can be. Sometimes there's kind of like residual effects. Often there's kind of side effects of the individual themselves. So in their locality, they might experience a lot of paranormal activity or electrical problems with electrical devices around their home. I've dealt with cases where people have literally, like, it seems to be sort of like some sort of field around them, like they walk down a road and the traffic lights, the street lights have gone off one at a time as they've been walking down the road. Now, they haven't captured that on camera, but I talked with people for many hours, and a lot of people, they don't want any kind of, they're not trying to get any fame with it. A lot of the time they're really concerned that their personal identity is going to be revealed, and I have to gain their trust. So, it shows me straight away that they're not, trying to kind of get as much money as they can from it and that sort of thing. So there's this misconception by quite a few people that people are just spreading all these stories, and they're just doing it for their own personal glory to get their name in the paper and that sort of thing. And that very rarely happens. In most cases, they don't. It's the other way around.
And I was going to go on to that. So, what kind of personality in a person do these life forms attract to? Like, is it any age, gender, involvement? I heard as well that people are involved in military, like family members being involved in the military or involved near a military base. Are they more prone to?
I've not detected that pattern myself. There might be particular researchers who've detected some kind of pattern with that. There's also a view on the kind of rhesus negative blood group and that sort of thing, but. And some researchers believe that that's kind of in some way linked with the beings and genetic manipulation, but there's no kind of definite proof of that. There's a slight proportion sort of female to male, so about 55 to 45% female to male.
Right.
But
Yeah.
seems to be no real patterns regarding age or background of individuals, all sorts of different people, all sorts of ages. A lot, but there is patterns regarding psychic abilities, interestingly. So in over half the cases that I've dealt with, and I've dealt with a lot, the individual has individually expressed to me that they believe that they've got at least one psychic type ability, be it kind of highly empathic and can detect people's emotions, or they're having kind of premonitions of future events that then come true. And it's not always something dramatic like 9/11 or something like that. It can sometimes be something really mundane. But again and again and again, people will talk about having these kind of types of abilities at the same time as contact. And there's a definite link going on with that. But what we don't know is whether the sixth sense type abilities come about from contact or some sort of side effect of them having contact. Right. Or are the beings kind of interested in them because they've got latent psychic abilities? It's one of the fascinating angles of the subject, and there's different viewpoints the way you look at it. You know, what's going on there, why the link, you know, are they interested in them because they're naturally psychic, so therefore they're particularly interested in them. But I've dealt with lots of cases where they haven't.
Yeah, I suppose it would be varied there. Like, I was going to ask you there, but you said it's so varied there. You know, I was going to ask there, people are more like looking for them. Would that activity happen more? So if you had as you said,
no, not as far as I can tell. I haven't. I mean, obviously you've got what's known as C5 protocols, where people try to kind of bring in UFOs, but that's very different. Bringing in a UFO and then maybe seeing something in the sky is obviously very different to having direct interaction with the beings themselves. I believe that there are a number of ongoing agendas with these beings that's been going on for hundreds of years, and there's no sign of it coming to a close. It's very, very deep. We could go any of those particular agendas we could go into over, you know, take an hour to just go through them. But yeah, there's a lot going on with the subject. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, so I got chills on my back. It's just so interesting there. But we're going to talk about the double adoption case first. But first, I just want to ask you there about family members. Have you come across that there's more than one person in the family being abducted?
Oh yeah, that's a pattern. Yeah, so what we seem to detect is they seem to follow bloodlines. So down the family tree, and it will usually be kind of multiple bloodlines down one side of the family tree. So some other people, like partners, might be there and might indirectly become experiences themselves because of them being in the same location as the person. But it would usually be sort of like, it might be grandmother, mother, daughter, that sort of thing. It's a definite pattern there, and some people view that's because they're very interested in our genetics, and maybe they're kind of seeing how family lines change over time, perhaps even directly doing things, changing us on a genetic level, not in any massively dramatic way, because otherwise there'd be no science would have no problem proving that it was really going on, because they get people in a lab and they'll be like, wow, their genetics are changed, they're not fully human or whatever. And that hasn't happened. So if they are making changes, it's going to be kind of gradual over a long period of time, but they're certainly very interested in our genetics. A lot of people undergo kind of medical type examination procedures where they will take blood samples, hair samples, sperm and egg samples, that sort of thing. So there's a lot going on with it, where linking with our genetics and our DNA.
And just before we touch on the double abduction, is there any like identification that people give that's come up regular, how these people look, how these aliens life form look like? Is there a regular pattern? Yeah, there's a lot of regularity in that. So there's kind of four main types that the majority of the cases that at least I've delved into appear. So first of all, you got the Greys, the quintessential archetypal view of an alien. Big head, large black eyes. Sometimes they have irises, but there's different subtypes of them and that sort of thing, with different skin coloration. But they're usually about 4 foot high, although there are cases, including the one we're about to go into, where taller ones are seen. Then you've got Nordics, otherwise known as humanoids, or Pleiadians, some people call them. They're very, very human looking, quite pale. A lot of people describe them as sort of very beautiful looking. Usually got blonde or pale long hair, and tend to wear these sort of jumpsuits, silver blue colors, can sometimes be seen in flowing robes. Right. So kind of similar to angelic,
yeah. And then and some people who've got a religious background actually think they're having an angel experience. I've dealt with people who have given it a religious slant, and then when they started looking into contact and have seen a lot of other people who are also experiencing these beings, they've actually changed their opinion over time. So they've gone in thinking it's aliens, and then gone in thinking it's angels, and then they've shifted later on and think it's probably an alien species instead. It's really interesting. Then you've got reptilians. So it's kind of very sort of bipedal, reptile-looking things. They're not seen anything like as much as Nordics or Greys, but I've dealt with cases involving those, and I've also dealt with cases involving what's known as mantids or mantis. They look very, very insectoid in appearance. Very large black eyes that wrap around the side of the head. Maybe it may have links with the Greys, because some people sort of see them as a sort of subspecies of Greys, but yeah, it's interesting that they look quite insectoid. But then we've got so many different things, so many different life forms on this planet, that whatever they look like, they'd remind people of something. Yeah, if they were a blob, people would be like, oh, it looks a bit like a starfish crossed with an octopus, or you know what I mean. Whatever they look like, they'd probably look like something on Earth. Yeah, so some people are like suspicious that they look a bit like an insect, but I don't think so really, because we've got so many a vast array of life on the planet that whatever they look like, they probably remind people of something. But those are the four sort of key types that turn up again and again. Call them species, if you will. They might not necessarily be species. One thing that we have seen is that they work together towards common agendas. So I've dealt with lots of cases where multiple different types have been seen in the same experience, or by the same person on different experiences.
I was going to say, so we're going to touch on that double abduction case. Yeah. So when did that happen?
So this happened around late December 2010. Okay. And I went and spoke with the lady initially early 2011. I was passed the case by Philip Mantle, who you may know, another UFO researcher. Okay. So a lot of the time people pass me contact cases because they know that's my speciality. So the lady lived in Droitwich with her family, just on the outskirts of the town, and so quite a rural area, rural fields. The first incident, what happened with that? So she didn't really have an interest in the UFO subject. So she wasn't primed to tell me, I've seen Greys. They took me aboard their craft, or anything like that. Yeah, they didn't really. She hadn't looked into the subject. Yeah. It actually started with the UFO sighting, the first incident. She woke up and she was finding it hard to sleep, and it was the early hours of the morning. And she went through to her daughter's bedroom to check up on them, and they were fast asleep. But they had the no curtain on the window, and she looked out, and across the far side of the fields saw this glowing orange oval shaped object moving over the trees in the distance. And she first thought it was like a plane crashing, but she realized it was moving too slow. So she's trying to. She's not straight away saying it's a spaceship or anything like that. Yeah, she was actually holding up a piece of paper on the window to make sure that it wasn't a reflection of a light in a daughter's room. Yeah, so she's being logical with it. Yeah. But it was, she could see it through the paper, so she knew it was coming. It was actually outside. Anyway, she turns around to look at her daughter, and when she looks back, this object has jumped, and it's no longer in the distance. It's now about 100 yards from the house and right down over the field, over this farmer's field. And it just looks like this very, very bright bank of lights in a row. You can't see the shape of the object behind it. It's just this line of glowing lights, and it's very, very close. Yeah. Now, what would you do in that situation? You'd probably wake up your family and be like, "Wow, look at this!" You'd probably get your camera out, maybe take some photos. Maybe you'd be terrified. You'd go and hide in the cupboard or something. Maybe you'd ring the police. You'd be like, "Help me! There's something outside the house." Or maybe you'd try and get hold of a UFO group.
I'd probably wash my face. I don't know.
But what she does is she accepts it and goes back to bed. Now, this is one of the aspects of contact that occurs again and again, and it's the very real reason for why there's very few photographs and videos of contact taking place. So people are always like, skeptics are always like, oh, if it's going on worldwide all the time, why wasn't there loads of videos on the phone of aliens and that sort of thing? Yeah. The reason is that most people don't act in a normal frame of mind when they're experiencing contact. They act super complacent to it, like it's an everyday occurrence. Yeah. And she accepts that there's this thing right outside the house. And she just goes back to her room and lies down, and she closes her eyes, but she doesn't think. She drops off to sleep. All of a sudden, she's opening her eyes, but she feels she's no longer in a room yet. It's dark all around her, except for her eldest daughter, who's up here by her shoulder, and she's lying down. Her daughter's there, and her daughter leans in close and whispers in her ear, it's your turn next, Mum. Don't worry, they're not going to hurt you. Right. And
I know it's good.
before she knows, before she's what, yeah. But before she finds out what's going on, she feels this kind of rushing sensation. Said it felt like a bit like rushing through a wind tunnel or something, yeah. And all of a sudden, she's in this other location, and now she's free floating in midair. She believes she was naked in a lying down position. She's paralyzed from the neck downwards. That's another very, very common thing. So she can move around and look around her head a bit, but she can't move her body. And she's free floating, and around her she can see these glowing grid lines, really, really weird, like yellow lasers in square shapes, like almost like Tron or something. Yeah, all around wherever she looks, all directions. That's really, really rare, and I've yet to come across another case where that exact thing has been described. She says you can feel the presence of some being up here behind the shoulder. You know when somebody's standing right behind you, but without looking. Yeah, it's like that. Yeah. So she knew someone was there, but she couldn't arc her head around enough to see it. She also senses there's a number of small beings. She doesn't know how they're small. She just knows that they're small, yeah. But she can't see them because she can't look at, maybe she thinks they're small because she can't see them. When she's looking down the body, she can't see anything, so therefore, but she senses that they're either side of her, and they start touching her body. She feels them touching her, so she can feel their fingers, like kind of like checking her out. So they're moving down her body. She actually had a bad back at the time, and she was very worried that they were going to hurt her back. And in response to her thinking about that, she actually got a telepathic message in her mind saying, don't worry, we're not going to hurt your back. So it means that they were essentially listening to her memory. They were listening to her thoughts, and without her asking a question, actually responded to her telepathically. So the beings almost always talk telepathically. All of the different types talk telepathically. So this body examination goes on here. And she's just lying there, and she's getting very sort of stressed, starts to get quite stressed out by it, because you wouldn't you? It'd be quite frightening. And at this, she feels the hand of the being behind her, hand on her head, and this sense of calm overcomes her. And I've dealt with other cases, completely separate cases, where that exact same thing has been described. And sometimes the beings will also stare directly into the person's face up close, and they'll sense this kind of calming sensation come over them, probably psychically induced, through telepathy. So she's there lying in this position. All of a sudden, this doorway opens off to her left. So you're looking down her body, you see it over there. It's like a rectangular doorway of white light. Standing in the doorway is her eldest son. But he's not interacting with her. He's not coming to save her. And he's just standing there. Yeah. Right. And she's wondering, what are you doing here in this weird place? And why aren't you helping me? And he's too far away to kind of speak with or anything. But she sees him there just standing at this door. Now, her son was quite tall. Yeah, he was about sort of 7 foot high or something. I went around to visit the family. He was dwarfing me. I was like, whoa. Really nice chap, yeah. And he was there, and he was in her experience, yeah. Well, that was all she remembered, yeah. She sensed there was this kind of urgency to the situation, yeah, and things needed to hurry up. And all of a sudden, she finds herself back in her own bed, right? And she's awake, and she's terrified. And it felt very, very vivid to her. It felt a lot more vivid than a normal dream would. She wakes her husband up, and he's like, go back to sleep. He just thinks it's a weird nightmare. Yeah, he's like, yeah. So she settles back down to sleep, right? In the morning, she not only starts to get more and more kind of worked up about being in that room and sleeping at night and that sort of thing. She also gets this feeling that she's pregnant, right? Oh
yes, that's the question I was going to ask you there. Yes. Go ahead there, Dave.
Yeah, and she doesn't know why, right? And this feeling grows and grows for several days until the point when she actually goes to her GP, and her GP confirms to her that she's not pregnant. And after he confirms it, then the feeling goes right away. But the feeling of anxiety of being in the room, continues, right? So her husband happened to make security cameras for a living, And I'm not saying that like, that's how convenient, It wasn't like that, I went around their house, and they had box loads of these things everywhere, He was building them for a living and selling them, these security cameras. So he thought to put her mind at ease, we'll set up a camera in the room. Said to her, nothing will come and get you at night, if there's a camera watching you, will it, Trying to, he didn't think anything had happened to her, but he wanted her to be okay.
To calm her down and be that safety kind of.
Exactly. I mean, it makes logical sense. So they did that. They set up one of his cameras, rigged it up to a monster, and every night when they went to sleep or whatever, they'd set it on running, and it would run through the night. And in the morning, they'd wipe the footage, and next day it's like infrared camera. Well, 3 nights out, and sure enough, calms her down. And she's able to sleep again. So that security kind of kicks in, and she's good with it. 3 days after this camera's been set up, all of a sudden she has this second experience, Now, with the second experience, it didn't start with a UFO sighting or anything like that. She was just there. She just suddenly found herself in this very weird place. It was kind of reminded her a bit like a doctor's office. It was kind of wood paneling, and there was a big double door and this sort of thing. She was lying down on a flattened table bench-like structure. She was unclothed again, but this time she had a thin whitish sheet draped over her body up to her neck. And off to her right, and again, she could sense the presence of this one behind her left shoulder again. So there was a direct link there with the previous incident, yeah. And again, she couldn't see him because, again, she's paralyzed, yeah. Off to her right, she can see what's off to her right this time. There's this little chap. He's a little doctor guy. He's wearing a sort of typical white doctor's coat. He's got very short red hair that's kind of brushed back. He's got spectacles on. And he's there next to her, and he doesn't talk with her. But what he does, he reaches out his hands and he puts them above her and hovers them a couple of inches above her body and starts moving down her body. And then she hears telepathically ailments that she's had, like either ailments she's currently got, like a bad back, or things she's had in the past. Like tells I used to have a stomach ulcer a number of years ago, but it's cleared up. Kind of some kind of body scan going on. And he's moving his hands down her body like this, and this body scan goes on a bit, and she's kind of very worried that it's going to tell her something really bad, like you've got cancer. And again, she gets the telepathic response, don't worry, you haven't got that. So again, they were listening to her thoughts. After this body scan thing happens, bang, she's back in the bed. She wakes up, she's whoa, yeah, she's up. And again, she's like, same as before. She's like, that was really weird. That did not feel like a nightmare of any kind. What's going on here? Again, her husband's there, and he's kind of, and she decides this time to sort of leave him because he doesn't really believe her the first time. So she just kind of lies there a while, and then eventually she manages to drop back off to sleep. Right, gets to the morning, and she finds a couple of bruises on her abdomen area that she's sure wasn't there before here, around the belly. But they've got the footage, haven't they? They've got the camera. The camera's been running through the night. So what are you going to do, yeah? You're going to check the footage, see if you can find anything, yeah? So they start looking through this footage, and it's going hour after hour, and they're watching it all, and they're just lying around in bed, occasionally shifting around, yeah? Anyway, it gets to about 3:33 in the morning, which may or may not be significant. There is numeracy kind of elements to contact sometimes. But about 3:33, all of a sudden, she starts doing this very weird thing where her back starts arching. It looks like her back's arching up in the bed really high, yeah, like for whatever reason, yeah. And then all of a sudden, it kind of just folds inwards and just goes really, really flat looking. It looks like, to all intents and purposes, she'd kind of gone from the bed. You can still sort of see her husband. He's sort of in semi-darkness. This is an infrared camera, so it's not very good quality. It's actually a lot less quality than the first-hand camera footage, and the reason for that is that we tried to extract the raw file, but the security camera they had was not built to extract data from you. So I tried using some very advanced software to pull out the file out the camera, but couldn't get anything that would work with it. In the end, they did manage to extract the file. An American TV company who created a show called Fact or Faked, which you may have seen, where they tried to prove or disprove paranormal videos. Yeah. She appeared on that. She's in one of the episodes of that show. She wanted people to see the video, not to earn any money off it. She just wanted to know an explanation for what had happened. She wanted to hear other people's opinion on the video. I warned her against it. I sort of said, they might try to, ridicule you or whatever. But she went for it, and she thought, I'm interested. I need to find out what I can. So she sent it them, and they managed to get out the camera footage in the end using some even more advanced software that I couldn't access. Either way, they got hold of it, and I did get to see it, but it didn't really answer any further questions or anything. It was just the same footage, but a bit more clear, and it didn't really clarify what had or hadn't occurred. They use it in the show, I believe. It's their property, not mine, so I didn't have it. I didn't own it. It was owned by that TV crew, unfortunately. So it's not in the report, but you can see what they did is they rigged it up to a monitor, and then they filmed the monitor, right? So when you see the video in the case report, that's what's in there. It's basically so it looks more grainy than it should, really. It looks a bit grainy, yeah. But believe you me, the ungrained one looks exactly the same, yeah. Basically, it lies flat for about 14 minutes, and then all of a sudden, the sheets kind of shoot right up off the bed, really, really high up for whatever reason. And when they kind of fall back down, she's kind of shifting around a bit, but she's back in the bed, yeah. And it's now they tried to disprove this. They tried to actually recreate this footage on this TV show, yeah. and they said that they couldn't recreate it without the use of special effects. A lot of people have given their viewpoints on this video, sort of said, oh, it's an optical illusion, or oh, she's slipping down into two single beds pushed together. That's not the case, by the way. It's a normal bedroom. I wish at the time, thinking if I could rewind time, like if I'd have known all this hoo-ha was going to kick off about the video, I would have got loads of footage of the bedroom showing that it was a normal double bed, but you don't think about these things at the time. And I can categorically state that it was a normal double bed. There was no gap in the middle. It did not have any kind of special hydraulics inside or special effects gimmickry. And I can categorically state 100% the lady was genuine. I do not believe for 1 second that they were trying to orchestrate some sort of hoax with this. They didn't try to earn any money off it or anything like that. I don't know whether she got paid any money for the show or whatever. She may have, I don't know, but that certainly wasn't a gain. As I say, I still speak with her from time to time, and years on, it still affects her. She's still traumatized by what happened.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Was there any methods in dealing with her afterwards, like the psychological, physical, and social effects afterwards? Yeah. Well, she said that speaking with a researcher, me, helped a lot, getting it all out in the open and also documenting it all really helped. And I've heard that of quite a few people over the years. It sort of normalizes it, getting it written down. And also it helps because it's kind of written down then. It kind of makes it like more like real in a way, because and people's memories change over time. But, it's down on paper, it's not going to change, right? Because the words aren't going to change. So, it's good for they keep it. Some people use it as almost a diary of weird stuff that's happening to them. If they have ongoing experiences, they'll get back in touch with me and they'll be like, something else has happened, Dave. Can we add it to the report or whatever? And we'll go and do that with it. She did have a number of other experiences. There's all sorts of questions can come out with it from what I've just shared there. There was a regression. We did a regression. So I worked with a regressive hypnotherapist. We regressed her at her house. The hypnotherapist I worked with at the time was happy to do that, regress people in their own homes. The one I work with now doesn't. He does it at his own place, he does it professionally for a job, But at the time we went out there, she got regressed. A lot of people with contacts are like, oh, they only remember these details while they're under regression. It's just their imagination, and the details don't come out until they're regressed. Well, that's not the case with this. She remembered 99.5% of everything. And under regression, she gave exactly the same details, as she'd already told us consciously before the regression, right? Here's the things that changed. Back to that first regret and back to that first incident. Remember I said about the doorway with a sun standing in it? Yeah. It wasn't a sun. So this is what's known as a screen memory, and it's one of the common aspects that comes out in contact. The beings, primarily the greys, will put on the appearance of something else. They'll mask their appearance, some people call it memory phishing because they believe that the beings are doing it intentionally. There is different opinions as to exactly. It's like a comfort kind of thing, just to think about somebody you recognise and.
And it can be a family member, it can be an animal, it can be like a pet or just not a pet. Like owls are quite common. They're so common, in fact, that they were using the film The Fourth Kind. And if you know the abduction horror movie The Fourth Kind that came out a number of years ago, they were using owls in that, and that's because of that link with contact. I've dealt with numerous cases where they've appeared as owls. They can appear as cartoon characters. I've dealt with cases where they've appeared as actual made-up characters out of kids' stories and all sorts of stuff. Really interesting. So it's a lot. I think that's probably what's going on with it. I've actually done a detailed lecture on screen memories because it's a particular aspect of the subject I'm fascinated by. And again, like most aspects of the subject, there's multiple possible explanations, right? Maybe it's kind of like a natural thing that's happening with the brain and it's down to trauma and the brain's changing it. But I think it's happening too regularly for that to be the case. And as I say, some experiences are quite positive, but people will still have screen memories. It happens more in childhood, or perhaps like in childhood they don't want to frighten people, so they change, and then later on. But with this case, she's a grown adult and she's getting screen memories. So it's not always children. It was a sun, but it wasn't a sun. Essentially, what it was a tall, thin grey being about 8 foot high. So sometimes the beings that are seen, a lot of the time they're sort of child height, but sometimes much taller ones are seen. And this was actually, if you remember the classic film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg's epic, he actually did that in that there was one of the beings that was particularly tall amongst all the shorter ones because he based that film on actual cases.
I was gonna say to you there as well, Dave, before we go to the next subject there,
Yes.
it's like these beings as well, they kind of could be like similar to what we could be in the future, like telepathy. We used to use that in the past. We sort of gone out of it. We may have to go back into it, like the social isolation.
Yes.
So having to use different ways and methods of communication. Do you think that to be that could be some sort of some previous questions, that it could be the human form, or do you think the form could be actually put in? They could be aliens put in, giving us that ability that they've sort of, they've sort of induced us in that way, like
yes. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the psychic thing, I think that. Well, I've dealt with quite a few cases where people have seem to have innate psychic experiences before they've even started to experience contact. But the trouble is, the problem with that is you've got the missing time element. So in most contact cases, the memories are fragmented, have bits missing. Like, for example, the case we're discussing, she couldn't remember traveling to or from. She was just in the other place, and it's called travel amnesia. It's quite common. But I've dealt with cases where people actually don't have travel amnesia, and as a result, they've got vertigo as a result, because of being lifted up into the air and looking down and seeing the town right below them and that sort of thing. And so it's actually left a lasting phobia because of that, and they're terrified of elevators and escalators because of that feeling of going up. Reminds them of being taken up into the craft. It's incredible, and there's a realism with that shows that this is a lot more deep than just nightmares, because when was the last time a nightmare that you had gave you a lasting ongoing phobia? It doesn't happen, right? All of us have had bad dreams in our life, there's nothing odd about having a bad dream, but bad dreams don't tend to affect you on a long-term basis like that.
They don't last for too long, apparently, there. But I know people can be, I suppose, people with haunting phenomena as well. People assume that people have that as well there, that they do have these after effects. They believe that they're possessed and all that, family members as well. I was going to talk about EMF as well, like seeing stuff happening with it, how, like, even having a compass around, like how that can be affected, like EMF around you. But I'm going to touch on the next subject there soon, but I'm going to go first of all, Dave. You'll have a chance to go into our Halloween mega draw, and you got to guess which coloured doorway the shy fairy is going to come out. Adam, if you're still watching, you have a guess as well.
I'm going to go with blue because it's the closest to my website colour.
Blue. So Dave is going to go for blue. Adam, if you're there, feel free to comment. Give you a couple of seconds. If not, Ashley or anyone. Apart from Jennifer or Jonathan as well, if anybody's still there. And Adam's gone in with green. Okay, Adam's gone in with green. Okay. So stay tuned now, Adam. I'm sorry there, Jonathan. Might give it for the next one, next 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, the next show there, we might actually put 2 people in there with a chance to do it. I'm sorry there. We'll go. We have to go with Adam because he won in the lotto jar. So the next subject is going to be UFO way. So we're going to completely talk about something else.
Sure. Yeah, well, sort of. I mean, it's definitely got links to the subject.
Well, we're touching on something which is it's a fun game there. I'm going to show some pictures of it on the screen there. Jonathan, Dave.
Yes.
Like Dave, it's like Only Fools and Horses. I can actually. Okay. Can you tell us when did you first produce this card game?
Oh my God! So it was produced several years ago now. That was when it finally commercially released. It was in development from initial concept about 10 years before that. Probably was when I first had the idea of doing this. It's my midlife crisis, UFO wave. It's essentially I've always been a tabletop gamer. I love gaming in general, video games and that sort of thing. I love that sort of interaction element. And with tabletop games, it's great because you're just kind of with your family and friends around a table. It's got a direct element. And in this kind of virtual world that we now live in, where everything's kind of electronic, it's sometimes nice to do that. With cards or a board game around the table.
It is. It's nice just to relax with family. It doesn't have to be kids or anything. It can be just close partner or friends there. And totally. It's nice just to come off computers and all that and just do that for a little bit.
Indeed, yeah. So I've always been a big gamer, and I decided. So there's a number of games out there that are themed on the alien and UFO subject already. Yeah, but there's very few games that do it to a kind of detailed level. That's an image there with lots of the different card types and that sort of thing. We'll get more into that. Essentially, what I wanted to create was the most authentic portrayal of the actual UFO subject, what's actually going on with it, because I believe that hadn't, like a lot of the time with the aliens in card games, they give them all little laser guns and it's all kind of alien invasion, Independence Day type stuff, usual sort of thing you'd see from the media, but I wanted to kind of make my card game authentic to the real subject. But at the same time, I wanted it to be kind of family friendly and just good fun. So I had this in the early days of it, right at the start, I had this choice to make about whether I wanted to go down a kind of serious artwork route, or a kind of more fun cartoon artwork. And as you can see, I chose the latter, and I'm very pleased I did. The artwork has been done by an actual experiencer, by an actual contactee who's had abduction experiences himself. From childhood. He lives in New York. He's a guy called Eric Black, and it's absolutely brilliant how this came about. So I first came across his artwork when I was at university over 20 years ago, and I remember seeing it back then and coming across it randomly on Google Images or whatever, and thinking that's really cool. The guy quite clearly had a big interest in the subject. He'd quite obviously done a lot of. I had no idea he'd had experiences himself, but I could see from the pictures he was drawing that he knew a lot about the subject. There was a lot of elements in there that were about the real subject, and I liked his kind of quirky kind of art style. It appealed to me. So we flash forward to making the game, right? And I'm thinking which way I'm going to take this, and I can take it down a serious route or a cartoon route, and then I opt for the kind of fun cartoon route, and straight away it's there. I'm just like, I wonder if I can find that guy. That guy's artwork I saw decades ago. I was like, so I didn't even have his name or anything yet, but I started delving into Google Images again, and after loads and loads and loads of pages of images, I eventually find one of his art pieces, right? And on the art piece was his signature, just his initial and his surname. And using that, I started to do a bit more delving. Sherlock Holmes, eat your heart out. Do a bit more delving. I managed to find his full name, and then I looked him up, and I found out that he's still an active artist, and he lives in New York. And I arranged a video call with him and told him, I'm a UFO investigator from the UK. I want to make a card game on UFOs. Love your artwork. Would you be happy to do the artwork for the game? And he said, yeah, it's rock and roll. And in that initial discussion, that was where I found out he was actually an experiencer himself. And that's why he's got such an interest in the subject, and that's why he keeps drawing these beings and that sort of thing in his artwork. Even some of his newer pieces, even though a lot of his other art had nothing to do with the subject, you can see he's still drawn little grey heads and little flying saucers and stuff in it from time to time. Brilliant, really lovely chap, and he was really excited. And he'd never done artwork for a game before, so it was something completely new for him. So that was the art. So then I had to come up with how it was going to play, right? It's very difficult. So looking into would I do a board or a card game, and I was advised in early stages, if you're going to do a game, make sure for the first time, make sure it's a card game, because it's a lot easier to manufacture. As soon as you go down the board game route, you've got like pieces, miniatures, all that.
More materials
There's a lot more risk involved, just a lot more costs. The best way is just to go with a card game. So then I had to come up with the how it was going to play. So I went with the card game. And it went through about 6 or 7 different iterations over many years, And I didn't want people to think that I'd just taken an existing game, and put a UFO skin on it, right? That's just like that game, but it's quite obviously just changed the subject to UFOs. I didn't want anybody to say that, And some of the earlier iterations of it, because I had inspiration from other games I've played, it came out playing kind of quite similar to those games, and I was like, nah, back to the drawing board. Or some of them took too long or were too quick and just not clever enough for the gameplay. And eventually I settled on the finished product. It's a resource gathering card game, and in it you actually play as an alien species. So you actually take control of the Greys or the Nordics, reptilians. We've got hybrids in there, so that's the hybrid breeding program, which we haven't covered much. One of the ongoing agendas of these beings. You can see it there on the front cover, and the mantid there on the right, as I described earlier on, insectoid one. In the background, you can see that shadowy figure. That's a shadow being, commonly linked with obviously the world of the paranormal. There we go. There's the front image. So I wanted to include that link in there to the paranormal, so that's why that's in there, so you can play as a shadow being. Some of the kind of main types of craft that are seen are in the background, and we've got a little man in black and military in there. So yeah, as you're playing as the aliens, you're essentially out to perform activities like actually perform abductions or create crop formations, this sort of thing. And you're trying to do that to earn victory points, essentially called ET points in the game. You use powers and craft to manipulate the game in your favor. That line of cards that you saw where you've got it all laid out with the playmat is called the scan line, and it's basically what you can see in the local vicinity. So you have to think you're kind of flying around. There it is. So you're flying around and you're looking out the windows of your craft, what can you see in the local area, what's taking. So you're trying to perform these activities, but as groups of humans who are out to stop you. You can see a man in black there on the screenshot there, and they will guard adjacent activities. So he's next to that crop circle there, so he's essentially guarding it. So if you perform an activity with a human next to it, the human will spot you and then come and start watching you instead. And most of them have negative effects. So you're trying to kind of avoid them, and you can do different things. You can change the order of the cards around using your powers. You can remove cards or replace them. You can even do really vicious things like send bad humans to other players and that sort of thing. So it's quite competitive. It's got kind of fun elements in it where you can sort of go on the offensive and attack your opponents at the same time as trying to build your own score up. There's a lot of tactics to it.
Is it just one? Is it just one pack? Could you play it with the same different with like 2 packs opposite?
Yes.
Someone?
So it's essentially it'll do up to 6 players. It's got a solo mode in there. The solo mode is basically you against the game. Yeah. So it takes the opponent thing out of the way, and you're just trying to earn the highest score. Manipulating the cards but it's really been designed as a competitive game. So it works really great. I've played loads of games against my wife on it, 2 player. 6 players, amazing, just getting everybody, and you're all interacting with one another. You could easily put 2 copies of the game together and play an absolutely epic 12-player game of it. That would work. So you can kind of scale it up that way. But I wanted something that was kind of flexible and fun to play. So it's been designed not just for adults but older children.
I was going to ask you that. What age group would it be?
Like sort of 8 and up or something like that.
8 was.
My daughter was 10 at the time, and she picked it up quite fast and regularly beats me at the game. So it's been designed for that kind of fun element.
And like your own game.
She does, she does. Because there is a luck element again, because I didn't want it to be just solely skill based. Otherwise, the same person would be winning every single game. So as with most card games, there's an element of luck in terms of what cards you're getting, but how you play those cards and when you play them. That's the nuance of the game. So there's a deep level of strategy in it, but it's also quite easy to pick up and learn. We've got a mascot. The mascot is a grey called Bob. He's on the box. I don't know if you can. There he is. There he is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there's the box in real life. It's a flip-top lid, because I've always liked flip-top games because they're very nice to pack away. So you just lift it up like that. The instruction manual, let me get that out. So basically, the instruction manual, a top secret government document. We've got a picture of Bob up there, a little man in black and stuff. And again, I can't stand games that have got really bad rule books where you read it and you're just confused. There's missing rules. So this thing, I guarantee, is honed to perfection. Again, it went through about 10 versions until we settled on the final thing.
You didn't get it from Lidl or Aldi.
No. So it kind of tells you how to set up the game and how to play, and sort of Bob will take you through even example turns of, so it's quite easy to learn.
And an average, how long would a game last?
So a game lasts, depending on how strategic people are, a game usually lasts about sort of between half an hour to 45 minutes. If you get a lot of strategic players that are properly, deeply thinking about options each turn and what they're going to do and how that's going to affect their other players and that sort of thing. Because when you get into the deeper levels, you're not only looking about what your own score, but what your opponents are doing and how their score's building up. because you've got to try and get a better score than them. So then you might start shifting a load of negative stuff their way to bring down their score to level things up. Games can go on over an hour, depending on how strategic people are.
That's
or you can
nice.
just chuck it away and you can play it in about 15 minutes and just not really think and just start grabbing cards randomly. But I wouldn't advise that. It's a lot more fun when you think about what you're doing with it. But I'm very, very proud of it. It took a lot of time and effort and considerable amounts of money to get it to where it was. When it was initially launched, I kickstarted it through the crowdfunding website Kickstarter. That was a great success, and we reached our Kickstarter goal, and we were able to produce the game. And then it went on Amazon for a while. Unfortunately, Amazon they've got absolutely massive charges on an enduring basis. So you get a lot of sort of very, very big companies, but sole traders like myself with one product, it's not very good for, because they start charging you an arm and a leg after it's been, because you've got all this stock. You had to put the stock with Amazon, and then they're going to start charging a lot. So I had to take it off that. But right now you can still buy UFO Wave. You can either meet me at conferences. I always have copies there with me. You can come on down BUFOG. You can contact me via email or via the Birmingham UFO Group website. And there's a section on UFO Wave in the BUFOG site now. That's where it's kind of home, so you can see how the game works.
That's what Adam was going to be asking there. Where can you be purchased there?
Yes, yeah. So I'll happily post it out. I just need to, work out the postage costs. I'll happily do international postage and everything. It's not a problem. We just need to kind of work out how much it's going to cost. UK postal generally for the base game around sort of £7 or £8. With the playmat, obviously, that because the playmat's quite sizable.
You never know, Adam. If you get lucky with this, there I might get a few packs for the Halloween mega draw there. So coming towards Halloween when I meet Dave there. So
I think you'll definitely find the game fun to play. As I say, if you've got time at the conference, you can try out a few turns of it and that sort of thing. So and I'm happy to take you through the cards.
Definitely getting a pack anyway there because the kids and I just love it.
They'll really enjoy it. Take my word on that. As a gamer, I wouldn't be saying that if I didn't think it was a brilliant game. I've played it like over 100 times now, and it's always great fun. Whenever we play it, it's brilliant. I'm not saying that as any kind of sales pitch. I'm like, I assure you, this has cost me way more than this actually earned. But I didn't do it for the money again. I did it just because I wanted to. Because for my midlife crisis, I decided I was going to go and commercially release a UFO card game. So here we are.
It's a better person to do it, but as well, it is something worth doing when it's something you got to go. It's another project, and it's something that's sustained for a long old time as well. And Jonathan says, which is an interesting question. Would you ever think of adding UFO Wave for an app on the mobiles?
So again, the cost implications of that are the problem. Like, one of my friends actually has developed a number of iOS apps in the past, but they actually charge quite a lot of money behind the scenes for actually keeping apps on the site. So unless you're kind of earning money off either sales of it or monetization, like most games these days are like freemium on mobile, so they have kind of adverts integrated into them and that sort of thing. And I can't stand that sort of stuff.
No.
But yeah, I mean, if there was an opportunity to do a virtual version of the game, there is actually there's a virtual board gaming. I can't remember the name of it now. Tabletop Simulator, maybe. It's on Steam, and I actually built a virtual version of UFO Wave because while I was developing this, it was the lockdown, right? Worst time to release a game. Numerous people were like, "Don't do it," but I had no idea how long the pandemic was going to last for, right? So I was like, well. Yeah, I've come this far with it. I'm not going to let a little pandemic get in the way of me releasing this game yet. So I went for it anyway. But I wanted to kind of play test it, and it's very difficult because you want to get it out there and take it to places and people can try out the game to drum up interest for it. I built a virtual version of it, and we were playing online games virtually through that. I believe it's called Tabletop Simulator. It's probably still on there, the virtual version of UFO Wave, probably.
Okay. Well, we'll check it out there. And Dave, it's really appreciate for coming and talking to us there. Obviously, I'm going to ask you what is coming up. So you are actually commented there. There's the Wickham Paranormal Convention. But what else have you got coming up?
So at the moment, not booked in for any other conferences at the moment. I regularly give talks to different UFO and paranormal groups around the country. And I'm in the process, early stages of writing a book. So my next big project is my book, which many people have asked me to do. So I've started work on that. But yeah, again, it's ready when it's ready.
It'd be great to have a book out as well and listen to from your experiences. And where can people follow you as well?
So you've got the Birmingham UFO Group website, which is www.bufog.com. So on the website, you can find hundreds of case reports, including the cases we've gone over tonight. Also there on there is probably the world's biggest collection of UFO and alien themed music videos. I kid you not. Literally hundreds of UFO themed songs on there to check out. And there's a load of vast loads of other information, that sort of thing.
You got Katy Perry and
of course, yeah.
Kanye West.
Absolutely. Yes, it's actually split into different genres of music, so you can find something for whatever your taste in music is. I digress. Yeah, so we've got the events on there, so you can see upcoming meetings. So most of our monthly meetings, they take place in Albury, Birmingham, on the first Thursday of every month. We've actually got one coming up next week on Thursday, and we've got a lady coming to talk. Deborah Hatswell is coming to talk about British Bigfoot cases. So occasionally we branch away from the UFO subject and looking at kind of cryptids, and we've had ghosts and sorts of ghosts and things. So so you can find out what's coming up there on the website. We've got our Facebook community page. It's called BUFOG Truth Seekers. I'm the sole admin of that site, and so it's a private group, but you can add yourself to that, and I'll add you into that, and you can ask me questions on that, post links. It's where we chat between meetings. We've got our organisation page on Facebook as well. You just search Birmingham UFO Group. On that page, I will post upcoming meetings and released case reports only. So it's kind of a bit less kind of personal than you want to get in the community group to have a proper chinwag and get some threads going with questions and that sort of thing. Aside from that, we are on Instagram. There was an Instagram related to UFO Wave, which still exists, and that sort of thing. So various ways of getting in touch. Happy for people to reach out via phone, email, whatever. Email is birminghamufogroup@gmail.com. My number is on the BUFOG website, so if anybody wants to get in touch just to chat, I don't necessarily. So a lot of the time I will write case reports, but I don't want anybody to be put off thinking, if they reach out to me, that means automatically the details of their experiences are going online. It's nothing like that. I'm not a journalist, and I promise I don't bite, So get in touch and we can chat privately. And if you want the details to go in a case report, and I decide that I want to write that report, then we'll start an investigation. But it can be as confidential as the witness likes.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Like it's good that I do that with the paranormal fun. I always ask the owners or persons involved, whoever owns the property or whatever, that I ask them if it's okay to, disclose or let their information of what we got at the site made public. As soon as they give the go-ahead, then I go to Sky News. Jonathan says, Little Green Men, Ozzy Osbourne. I think that's the name of the song. Hopefully Adam's going to see some little green entities there soon on the competition. Just as you mentioned there, a lady there talking about cryptozoology there, and another few weeks' time, we're hoping to interview somebody in relation to the yowie in Australia and the Tasmanian tiger, which I think, I don't know, Dave. Do you know the other name for it?
Richard Freeman. Is it Richard Freeman? Is it Richard Freeman? The person?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to get the person.
So Richard Freeman's one of the cryptozoologists who's come and spoken at BUFOG. He's very, very good, and he's done hunts for various beasties around the planet. He did speak about the Tasmanian tiger. It may be him, and may not be. Obviously,
well, I don't know. I'm still trying to learn. There's another couple of few guys there, but that's another few weeks' time there. So we've got to check out now how we got on. Adam, you picked green, and Dave, you picked blue, was it? Blue?
I went blue.
Yeah, well, let's see. I think it's already played. Jesus, I don't know. How did this already play there?
Has it? Oh, we missed it. Oh, there we go.
Dave, you picked blue. Adam, you picked green.
Come on.
Which doorway is it going to be?
I'm willing it to be blue.
There we go. Nearly there. Oh, it's Adam. There you go. Adam, you guessed that.
Hey, there we go.
Adam. That's the first win in about 4 weeks. We've done this, 4 shows. Well done, Adam. There. So you're in the Halloween mega draw there, Adam, coming up towards Halloween, and you never know. I'm going to purchase a few of your cards there. So, Dave, and that could be in the competition then as well. UFO way. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. And I'm going to have to say goodbye now, but I won't see you next time. I'll see you in the near distance. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for participating, everyone. Bye-bye for now.
So
I won't see you next time. I'll see you in the near distance. I'll just press stop record there, Dave.
Just stop there for half an hour. Is it only